Energy Minister Chris Bowen last week released an uncosted 2035 emissions reduction target. So not only can he not say what this will do for your power bills, he's now refusing to say whether Labor will commit to 90% renewables to meet that target.
Will we need more than 90% renewables over the next decade?
Obviously,
is that because you had a target for 2030 of 82% renewables?
Correct.
I keep talking about that.
Yes.
What's the target for 2035?
Well, if you look at the ISP, we'll keep going.
So what's the 2035 target for renewables?
Well, we haven't set a particular target.
Why not?
Well, what we have done is set our emissions reduction target.
You have a target for 2030, but not 2035.
Well, because we set the 2030 target for renewable energy. We're still working to achieve that.
So it could be less than 90%.
Well, I think informed by the expert advice, David, is the correct, proper and methodical way of doing these things.
Which could be less than 90%.
Well, you could say it could be less, could be more.
No, he doesn't know, does he? Yet the Climate Change Authority's recommendations for a 62 to 70% target were based on, among other things, the ability to generate 90% of the country's electricity through renewables. Joining me now is the Australian's Environment Editor, Lloyd. Graham, if Labor cannot put a target on paper, what does this say about the renewables fantasy, let alone its uncosted 2035 target?
Oh, good evening, Danica. What it says is that Labor has learned its lesson not to be too specific about what it intends to do. Really, whether that's the price of electricity or the amount of renewables that are going into the system, the learning has been that they've got very little control over it, and they best not make a firm declaration lest they be held to account.
Yeah, and look, every expert has said that Labor will not meet its 2030 target to begin with. So I've got to say, it's just utterly bizarre that Labor's had some sort of weird light bulb moment of sorts to raise it to 62 to 70% by 2035. How are they actually going to get to this?
Well, certainly it's captured by the Paris Agreement scheme, where countries have an obligation to increase their ambition, if you like, every 5 years. So they've met that. But a lot of the world is making targets and has got no intention whatsoever of meeting them. Australia is sort of trying to play by the rules, if you like, and finding it incredibly difficult. And at some point in time, the government's going to be hoisted on its own petard.
Well, look, you mentioned Paris. I mean, is this not more evidence for Susan Lee to get us off this magic carpet ride of net zero by 2050?
Well, there's a lot of leaders around the world are questioning whether it was a good idea committing to net zero by 2050. The Conservatives in Australia, they're wrestling with this issue, whether there's more pain in surrendering and continuing to fight over it, or to find another way through. And that's something that they have to solve. I think the big dilemma for everybody is to, if you want to cut emissions, find the best way to do that and stop talking about it.
Yeah, look, spot on. It's actually that simple. And look, Graham, yet another nail in the coffin for the renewables fantasy today. Not one energy company has committed to fund a new wind farm so far this year. Not one, Graham. And this on top of the multiple delays and the cancellations of other renewables projects we've seen this year. I've actually lost count of the number that this has happened to. So where does it leave the industry?
Well, it leaves the industry really scratching its head at the moment. There's huge ambitions to build all these things, and what they're finding is that they're not bankable. So the finance industry isn't coming behind them, and the government has put in place a scheme that's going to offer a pathway. So you've got the government really competing with private sector lenders. The private sector won't put up funds because it thinks it might have the grass cut, if you like, by government. And you can, sure as night follows day, say that it's taxpayers who are going to be left holding the bill.
Yeah, as we have for everything under Labor. Look, we're almost out of time, but very quickly, Anthony Albanese is in a deadlock with Turkey over the rights to host the COP31 climate conference for the bargain price, Graham, of $300 million, would you believe? But he's over in the US spruiking at the moment, nothing like playing host, Graham, to a party you can't actually afford for a problem that you can't even solve.
Well, look, this is it's a big question, isn't it? You wonder whether they now think it was worth all the emotional effort that's gone into it and talking about it. Turkey has shown that it really doesn't want to pull out, or if it does, it wants to be given something in exchange. So, not only the 300 million, there's going to be something that will be offered to Turkey to get them to change their mind. And I think people are, right to question whether it's worth it.
Yeah, no, and as I said, for the bargain price of $300 million, getting people flying here on their private jets to talk about, private jets perhaps, Graham Lloyd. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Good to catch up.